Hello, my name is Kirioth, and today we're going to have a little chat about some changes to the intellectual property guidelines for Games Workshop, specifically one change which addresses fan films and animations. Now, on the surface of it, this looks really heavy-handed. It looks kind of scorched earth. It kind of looks like they're just pulling the ladder up behind them in a way. Let's just take a look at it, because this is pretty significant, and on paper, it's exactly what I didn't want them to do when it came to their recruitment of animators from the community, because, well, yeah, I mean, you'll see. Infringements. We have a zero-tolerance policy in respect of infringement of our intellectual property rights. This includes fan films and animations. Individuals must not create fan films or animations based on our settings and characters. These are only to be created under license from Games Workshop. Now, funnily enough, I don't like the sound of that, because that kind of seems like they are ensuring that they will never have a second round of animators found in the same way that they found the first lot. So what they did was they looked at some community favourites, they looked at some talented, skilled and passionate people who created fan films, and they brought them on board. They took them into Games Workshop proper. They gave them terms for contracts in terms of pay and the like, and those animators liked those terms enough to sign on with them. Now, I will say, as I said at the time, if someone wants to accept a job offer from Games Workshop and they're happy with the terms, that is it's their work, it's their decision, their choice. They shouldn't get harassed for it. I mean, after the stuff that happened with Sodaz, passion is not something that is in short supply when it comes to Games Workshop's IPs among fans, but there comes a point where perhaps it should be considered that being so overly defensive of someone else's IP towards someone who made things for that IP out of their own passion is not the way to go, putting it diplomatically. Basically, don't go after people for no reason. But Games Workshop got all their animators from the community, from YouTube. They got people who'd made great fan films, great animations, and they brought them on board, which, if they wanted to do that, that's fine. Their IP, and in terms of the animators, if they like the terms, of course, they can go for it if they want, and many of them did. What I didn't want to happen off the back of that would be a complete lockdown of fan films and animations. What I wanted was for it to be an optional thing, where an animator could do that if they wanted to. If they wanted to take those terms and agree to them, then great. But if they didn't, they would still be able to make stuff. Maybe not monetize it. I can understand why Games Workshop wouldn't want that. Of course, how rigorously they enforce that is down to them, and that is something that needs to be remembered amongst all of this conversation. It does say a zero-tolerance policy. They do say that. Things slip. I'm just going to say it right now. Things do slip. There are plenty of websites out there that make things that are pretty close to what Games Workshop make. I mean, they specifically mention imitation models. Our products must not be imitated. There are some websites out there that produce things that could be seen as being really quite similar to Games Workshop. Admittedly, in one specific case I can think of, no, maybe two specific cases I can think of, you could possibly get around that by slapping some big old titties on it, but still, you could be forgiven for thinking that they are related in appearance and in concept. And some of those websites are just there. They've never had an issue. They've never been hit. They've never been told off. They've never been done in. They've just continued to operate, and that's that. So when it comes to enforcement, that is of course key. Now when you say zero tolerance, that means that really it should be absolutely everyone, but that's not necessarily been the case in practice, even if it has been the case in intent. So when it comes to the fan films and animations, that's where it tends to get a little bit worrying, because there's so many different things to dislike about the wording of this. Firstly, the fact that they've already got a stable of animators, but they're kind of cutting themselves off from having that same experience again. Now, of course, YouTube is not the only place to find talented animators with passion. There are plenty of, you could put a job listing up for this, and I'm sure they would get a bajillion, people applying for it. So it's not like it's not like animators can only be found on YouTube. Of course, there are plenty of talented, qualified animators out there who would jump at the chance to do this. But Games Workshop do have a habit of hiring people who love what Games Workshop make. That's one of the reasons why the community team is made up of people who have a bajillion models, who have 800 armies, or in the case of Nick, have 18,000 points of Ultramarines or something. That may be too small an amount, I don't know. They hire people who love what they do. Hell, the number of times I've been to Warhammer World and gone into Forge World to buy something, and I think on at least 3 occasions, behind the till, there's been a pot of glue and a bunch of models being put together by the person who's there. Now, I don't know whether they're supposed to do that, but I tell you what, it gives quite a nice vibe to the experience. That is what they've done in terms of the animators they have now. They've found those kind of homegrown community members who have made something spectacular and gone, come and do that for us. If they fully enforce this, though, that's never going to happen again. Because people can't make the animations to begin with. They can't make the fan films to start with. That's a facet of it that really sticks out to me as being just kind of shooting yourself in the foot. It also cuts down on things like discoverability, which is something that is, I think, worth pointing out. Astartes was massively successful and had millions of views, and not everyone who watched Astartes was already a massive fanboy of Space Marines. A good number of people watched it because it got recommended. They watched it because it was popular. They watched it because it went viral. You're taking that away. If you enforce this properly, zero tolerance, if you enforce it rigorously and take everything down that doesn't, that hasn't been done under license from Games Workshop, that's never going to happen again either. It's just not. And that's a great way to ensure that fewer people find out about your product and about your IP. People got interested in Games Workshop and in Warhammer 40,000 after Astartes. I mean, Jesus Christ. There's one reaction channel, I forget the name of it. I don't tend to watch reaction stuff as a rule, but there's one reaction channel that went from reacting to Astartes to essentially reacting to the entirety of Luton's back catalogue. Like, the last time it showed up on one of my recommended, for some reason you can click not interested several times before YouTube goes, oh, you meant it. And that person has gone through almost it's just been borderline 40k and nothing else for God knows how long now. And there were plenty of other people who had that same experience. You make it so that no one can make fan films and animations, and you make it so that can never happen again. You just cut it off. There's no way to do it. Unless people are going to apply for the license, which some might, but it depends on whether the license costs money or not. With something as time-consuming, as painstaking, something that requires as much work as making a fan film or an animation, for someone to pay for a license to do it, then be unable to monetize it, it's a bit of an ask. It's not the same as some rando pleb with a camera and a microphone just talking crap about Games Workshop products. That's not the same. That is a direct reference to me. I'm only talking about me, not throwing shade. Well, I'm throwing shade at myself, don't know if that counts. That's just standard British self-deprecation, isn't it? But for it to be a licensed thing and to have to go to Games Workshop to get permission for it, that potentially opens yourself up to, if you've already done the work and applied for the license and them saying no, that's been a waste of time. It just strikes me as being, if something that is properly enforced, something that they really go after, something that they properly pursue, just a bad move all round. You lose the capability of recruiting more animators who are passionate about the product because they are not allowed to show that passion in the form of what you would hire them for. You lose the potential for a second Astartes in terms of something that is directly related to your IP that becomes vastly popular, thus introducing, throngs of new people to you and your products. And also, in a very real way, it cuts down on the amount of community interaction as well. The various fan animations and fan films that have shown up over the years have cultivated their own fan bases that are still at the very kind of, when you get to the peak of it, when everything's linked together, fans of your IP. They are fans of what you have done, of what you have created. Now, there might be fans of like certain interpretations of that. So, like text-to-speech, for instance. Text-to-speech is based off Games Workshop's IP, but it is, of course, its own kind of canon, and people love it for that. There's also things like more comedic takes on lore, for instance, like Major Kill. There are different interpretations of all of this stuff, but it's all linked to your IP, and it's all based off your IP, and people who start watching these animations and fan films will watch them, and if they like them, they will look for more. And they will look for more because they like your IP. Why you would block that off completely is beyond me. I get it. You don't want competition for Warhammer Plus. Understandable. But could it not be used as a funnel to Warhammer Plus? I mean, instead of saying no one can make this, say you can make this, but you need to include this. I mean, honestly, if I was in a position to make this sort of decision, which of course I'm not and probably will never be, if I was in this sort of position and I was told, okay, we want to make sure that we have no competition, my first thought would be, or we could just use the competition to funnel people to us. I mean, if part of the agreement for making a fan film for Games Workshop is that you can make it, it needs to be approved, so you can't just put up any old random crap that is offensive to someone or whatever, thus retaining control over your IP whilst it's being utilised by someone else. You could then say you need to make it clear that if people want more Warhammer animation stuff, they need to go to Warhammer Plus. I mean, surely that's a great way to funnel people over. Surely that's a great way to get people over to the official channel and paying money. Do a 3-month trial. Someone goes, they sees an amazing fan animation, they love it, they go, where can I find more of this? Oh, in the description, in the pinned comment, it says that you can see this is an unofficial, fan-made video using Games Workshop assets. For more official stuff, go over here. Could you not use that? Do something like that? Something that makes it clear that there's a distinction between the two, that one is unofficial and fan-made, but Games Workshop makes official stuff and you can find it over here. Would that not be a way to do it? That's one of the reasons I'm surprised that, that Astartes has just gone off YouTube. Well, it's not, because it's available in the form of 8 bajillion reaction videos and multiple instances where someone's cut together all the episodes into one long video. But, surely you could put that on YouTube under the Warhammer Animation YouTube channel and say this is Series 1 of Astartes. For Series 2, go to Warhammer Plus. It's all part of the same thing. It's all interconnected. And if you rigorously enforce individuals must not create fan films or animations based on our settings and characters, you just lose so much more than you gain. You genuinely do. I really believe you lose more than you gain by doing it this way. Of course, it depends entirely. It depends entirely on whether they really, really go for it. If they go ham and just cease and desist everything, then I mean, I don't know what to tell you. That would be a baffling decision, given all the strides that they've made. This is the other thing. Given all the strides that they've made, they actively support content creators now. They send out product for review. They send out codexes to channels that are honest and genuine about what they think of them. They actively use influencer marketing. I hate it as a phrase, but it's a thing. In the way that the gaming industry has been doing for years now. They've caught up. This isn't catching up. This is taking a step back. This is like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And it's made worse when you look at other companies that have got a different approach. If you look at Blizzard, now Blizzard is not a perfect company. By far not a perfect company, we all know that. But when it comes to fan films, when it comes to animations, they are so much more accepting. I'll put a link to their thing in the description, but essentially you can make what you like, within reason. Not safe for work stuff is not approved, I believe. Not that that stops anyone. Jesus, the amount of Overwatch porn is unreal. How do people have enough time in the day? Anyway, they are pretty supportive of fan projects. They're supportive of cosplay, they're supportive of artwork, they're supportive of fan films. They want people to make stuff. They want their stuff out there for other people to see. Because why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you want that? At the end of the day, that is the question that I'm left with when I read this. Individuals must not create fan films or animations based on our settings and characters. If they're doing it in a way that's respectful to the IP, if they're doing it in a way that gives a positive influence when it comes to your IP, if they're doing it in such a way that it draws attention to your IP, why wouldn't you want them to do that? Doesn't make a huge amount of sense. Does not make a huge amount of sense. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see how severely it's enforced. I mean, the channel to watch for that, I assume, would be absolutely nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing was offered the same terms as everyone else, I believe. I'm assuming they just have a standard package they send out to everyone. That might be an incorrect assumption on my part. But they turned down the offer. They demonetized the videos and turned off their Patreon. They've said that they understand where Games Workshop's coming from, and they're being very reasonable. It's worth pointing that out. But they said that they will continue to make animations, but just not be paid for them in any way. That might be the channel to watch to see how serious they are about this, about how much they're going to enforce it. It's just not great. It's just not great. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you for the next one.